Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's 1 p.m. and we're going to call the May 6th meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee to order. At this point, I would be looking for a motion to adopt this afternoon's agenda. Mayor Elmsley, seconded by Member Barkwell. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Is there any declarations of pecuniary interest with this afternoon's agenda? All right, seeing none. We will move right into item 3, public meeting reports. As required under the Planning Act, a public meeting is being held prior to the committee making a recommendation on these applications. All recommendations that come out of this afternoon will be forwarded to the next regular council meeting on Tuesday, May the 19th. The purpose of this public hearing is to allow the committee to gather information on the applications before us, to hear those wishing to make submissions on applications, and to allow the committee to ask questions of the applicants, interested parties, and staff. Everyone speaking today is requested to state their name for the public record, and in the interest of time, the committee respectfully asks that you keep your comments to no more than 5 minutes. When the appropriate time comes after the planner makes their presentation, members of the public will be provided an opportunity to speak to any public meeting items on the agenda. At that point, please either unmute yourself and turn on your video or come to the podium and press the speak button to activate the microphone. And with that, we will move into item 3.1, Plan 2026-030, an application to amend the Township of Fenland zoning bylaw 12-95 at Daytona Beach Road, Cameron. Ms. Evans?
Thank you. The subject property is located to the east of Long Beach Road and to the west of Sturgeon Lake. It does not have frontage on the water. The property is designated rural under the City of Kawartha Lake's official plan and is zoned Community Facility Exception 1 or CF-1 zone under the Township of Fenland zoning bylaw 12-95. As per the CF-1 zone, the property can only be used for gardens and parks. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment is a condition of provisional consent for consent applications D03 2025 022 to 032. The proposal is to sever the subject property into 11 parcels of varying sizes. Each parcel is to be merged on title with a corresponding existing waterfront lot. On this slide, each proposed backlot and the corresponding waterfront lot it is to be merged with are the same color. The lots are to be merged via merger agreements registered on title, which will result in each backlot and each corresponding waterfront lot being considered legally one lot and therefore transferred together if a future sale were to ever take place. The zoning bylaw amendment is to allow these 11 backlots to be used for residential accessory uses, including accessory buildings and structures. Staff are continuing to receive and review comments from various divisions and external partner agencies, and these comments will help inform the specific zone provisions that will be recommended through the zoning bylaw amendment. Once the evaluation of the proposal and the comments is complete, the application can return to PAC with a recommendation. So at this time, staff respectfully recommends that the report be received for information purposes with the application to return to a future PAC meeting. Both staff and the applicant are available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee, any questions for Ms. Evans at this time? Mayor Elmsley?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, would these backlots, could they be used for ARUs?
Through the chair, thank you for the question. That is one of the things we are evaluating, is whether it's appropriate to permit ARUs on these lots or whether the language of the zoning bylaw amendment should specifically prohibit ARUs. So it's something that we will be working with internally with planning as well as working with other divisions to make that determination.
And just to follow up, am I correct that if they're merged with the other properties across the road, will it all be considered waterfront?
Through the chair, as in designated waterfront, The designation of the property would not change. It would still continue to be rural. But in terms of legal standing, they would be considered one lot. So when looking at things like number of accessory structures, maximum lot coverage, they would be looked at as if they were one parcel.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Richardson.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Is there any concerns with these merged backlots being treated as separate development parcels in the future?
Through the chair, so one of the reasons for the merger agreement is that they would not be considered separate parcels to be developed. And most likely what will occur with the zoning bylaw amendment is that we create 11 exception zones that are specific to the lot area and frontage of each parcel. So if there was ever a proposal to change the configuration or do severances, that would need to be looked at through PAC again, because they would be specifically zoned for their lot area and frontage that they have.
Thank you. And just a follow-up question, is there any concerns with the stormwater management across the 11 newly expanded lots?
Through the chair, we have had comments from the engineering division about lot grading and drainage, which we will sort out as part of the zoning bylaw amendment if any additional studies are required for that.
Member Nguyen.
That's better, right? Thank you. My question deals with septic. Where would the septic for each of these lots be located, in the front lot or the back lot?
Through the chair, I believe all the waterfront lots are currently developed with dwellings, so they would have a septic system there. And that's something that we would have to consider as part of the ARU discussion, is septic systems going onto those back lots to service ARUs. So that's something that we will need to evaluate as part of this.
Any further questions from committee at this time? Member Barkwell.
Access to this is through a municipal road. So Daytona Beach Road goes partially municipal, and then it's, your presentation said it's private as well. I think at one point that was limited service residential, and I just wondered how access it will be maintained for the other property owners. Will it be a private road with them having access, and or will it be a LSR?
Through the chair, this section of Daytona Beach Road is assumed and maintained by the municipality. So if any of the back lots were looking to do entrances, they would need entrance permits from the city. The waterfront lots are zoned a rural residential zone category, not limited service residential, so the zoning would likely match with that zone category with specific exceptions for each one. I apologize if that didn't answer the full question, but if there was anything else, if you could maybe rephrase the last part.
That's good, thank you.
Councillor Warren.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just wondering if there are other developments like this in the city?
Through the chair, I have come across this in Verulam for Ken Hill Beach Road, has backlots that have specific zones that say they're for accessory buildings and you can have this many accessory buildings. So that was likely done when those were all severed and then merged with their corresponding waterfront lots.
Any further questions from committee at this time? Everybody's good? Okay. Does the applicant, owner, or their agent wish to speak to the application?
Hello, through you, Mr. Chair, Vanessa Archer from TD Consulting. Thank you for the information that was provided to those questions. At this time, the owners, none of the owners that are involved in this are intending to put ARUs on the back properties. So we have been in communication with Catherine there in regards to that. And I mean, if there was future owners, like she said, if these sold in the future and people were looking at that, I think it would have to be addressed either through a specific zoning bylaw amendment that we're looking at, or them doing minor variances or such at that time. We know that the lots that do have the playground and the sheds and stuff, those ones meet their lot coverage for their accessory structures and everything. There's a couple that are right now over, so that may be addressed through the exceptions as well. If there's any additional questions, I'm here.
Any questions for Ms. Archer at this time? Everybody's good? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to the application? Anyone from the public wishing to speak to the application? Calling a third and final time. Anyone from the public wishing to speak to the application? Seeing and hearing none. Committee, what is your recommendation to council? Mayor Elmsley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That report plan 2026-030, application to amend the Township of Fenelon zoning bylaw 1295 at Detonia Beach Road, Fenelon, Hayter AL, be received for information.
Seconder, Councillor Warren. Any discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. That brings us to item 3.2, Plan 2026-028, an application to amend the Township of Verlem zoning bylaw 6-87 at 26 Edgewood Drive, Fenelon Falls. Cheyenne Okahawat, and I apologize if I mispronounced that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The report for the zoning bylaw amendment application at 26 Edgewood Drive is being presented and received for recommendation. The subject property is located in the geographic township of Verulem and sits along Sturgeon Lake. Access to the property is from Edgewood Drive, which is a public road that receives year-round maintenance. The purpose of this application is to rezone the subject land in accordance with the approved provisional consent in order to facilitate a lot addition and a new residential building lot. The subject property is designated waterfront under the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan. The proposed severance will maintain the lot area and minimum lot frontage requirements of the official plan, as well as support the objectives, goals, and policies of the waterfront designation. Catherine, it's not working. Oh, it did it. Under the Township of Verulem zoning bylaw, the property is currently zoned residential type 1 special 9, and the proposal seeks to rezone the severed and benefiting lot lands to the residential type 1 special 14 zone in order to permit the proposed reduced minimum lot frontage and lot area. Additionally, the proposal seeks to rezone the retained lands to a site-specific residential type 1 special 28 holding zone in order to permit the existing accessory structures to remain as standalone uses until a primary use is established. The subject property currently contains an existing single detached dwelling, 2 boathouses, and 2 docks. The first existing boathouse and dock will be contained within the proposed retained lands. The second boathouse, the boathouse and the dock, as well as the existing single detached dwelling, will be contained within the proposed severed and benefiting lands. As a result of the proposed severance, the lot area and frontage of the severed and benefiting lot will not meet the minimum zoning requirements. This residential type 1 special 14 zone is considered the most appropriate zoning category for the severed and benefiting lands. This zone provisions are appropriate for this lot as it reflects the pattern of development in the surrounding area and supports the continuation of low-density residential use. This approach also maintains consistency with the established planning framework of the directly abutting properties that are also zoned R1-14, while facilitating a compatible infill development within the neighborhood. In regards to the retained lot, the proposed residential type 1 special 28 holding zone represents the appropriate zone category for this lot. The proposed severance would leave an existing boathouse and dock as the only structures on the retained lot. While accessory structures such as a boathouse are permitted under the current zone, they are required to be accompanied with a primary use. In this case, that primary use would be a dwelling. Establishing this new site-specific zone will allow the existing accessory structures to function as a standalone use until a primary use is established. This approach ensures that no additional development occurs on the property until a primary use is established, while allowing the current use to continue in the interim. Furthermore, the inclusion of a holding symbol to the zone category will ensure that the appropriate studies, in this case an archaeological assessment, will be completed prior to any new development occurring. The inclusion of the holding symbol is to satisfy the comments received from the city's heritage team and Alderville First Nations. The proposed text amendment that has been drafted would adhere to these requirements and be consistent with the city's official plan policies regarding archaeological assessments. Planning staff are of the opinion that the proposed rezoning is consistent with the applicable policies of the PPS official plan and would comply with the intent of the Township of Rhuleau zoning bylaw. Staff respectfully recommends that the zoning bylaw amendment respecting to application in the form attached as Appendix D and Appendix E to Report Plan 2026-028 be approved. And before I end my presentation, I would like to bring attention to the revisions of the draft bylaw amendments in Appendix D and Appendix E. A digital copy has been circulated to members of PAC as well as a copy to the applicant. These revisions highlight the changes made, which were mainly to correct grammatical errors and improve clarity within the text. Minor wording adjustments to the amendments have also been made, but the overall intent and essence of the amendment remain unchanged. Thank you.
Thank you for the report. Any questions for Mr. Okawat at this time? Councillor Warren?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the report. What is the frontage on both these lots?
Through the chair, if you could just give me one moment, I can pull up that information. Through the chair. So the frontage on the retained lot would be 48.88 meters, and the frontage on the severed and benefiting lot would be approximately 30.13 meters.
Mayor Helmsley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. Is there any possibility that that boathouse could be lived in?
Through the chair, our zoning bylaw does not allow for any human habitation in boathouses. Currently, there is no plumbing attached to the existing boathouse. So unless they got a building permit, we wouldn't know until that moment, but they're not allowed to have that.
Member Nguyen?
Thank you. Sorry, I'm terrible with numbers. The frontage that you mentioned in meters, does that meet the current requirements? So in the future, if the severed land or the parcel that does not have the residence, would it meet our existing requirement in order to build a residence?
Through the chair, so the property is currently zoned as R1-9. Through this severance, it wouldn't meet its specific lot frontage. So essentially what's going to happen is that the retained plus the benefiting would go into R114 to comply with that lot frontage. And with the new site-specific R1-28 for the retained, it would follow the original R1 lot frontage requirements, which would also comply with the new lot frontages.
Any further questions from committee at this time? Everybody's good? Okay. Does the applicant, owner, or their agent wish to speak to the application?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee, staff. I want to let the committee know that I appreciate the constructive discussion Mr. Okawat and I had the other day. We agreed to the revisions that you've seen in your report, or in the appendices to the report, Appendix D and E. I would like confirmation that the reference to Part Lot 8, Plan 57M 739 is removed from Appendix D. And the reason being is that in 1996, the Verlem zoning bylaw applied the R114 zone to the benefiting lot. So it's already today, and since 1996 has been zoned R1. That's the zone that was applied to lots 1 to 8 in that abutting registered plan of subdivision. So when Mr. Grant and the late Mr. Pham, the owner of Lot 7 and Lot 95, Registrar's Compiled Plan 551, the subject land, bought Lot 8, subdivided it, and each acquired their respective abutting half. So my clients purchased Part 1, Plan 57R 9410, and that lot at that time was zoned R114. So nothing has changed on that, nothing is proposed to change on that. So Appendix E does not need to include any reference to that legal description because the zoning is already in place on that property. If you approve the zoning bylaw, you're rezoning something from R114 to R114. There are no concerns with respect to Appendix D as revised. And Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer any questions the committee may have with respect to this application and the companion consent application. Thank you.
Okay, great. Mr. Okawat, did you want to respond to Mr. Carroll before I go to questions?
Through the chair. So in reference for the benefiting lot, the only reason it was included was to ensure that the entire property is correctly zoned as R114. Worst case scenario, it gets changed, it gets rezoned to the current zone it's already at, R114, and nothing changes. Best case scenario, everything gets cleaned up, we ensure that it is R114, and there wouldn't really be any negatives to adding it to the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee, any questions for Mr. Carroll at this time? Member O'Reilly?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Hearing the response, what's your comment?
It's unnecessary, it's inappropriate.
Does it change anything in the end?
It's sloppy drafting, Mr. Chairman. The bylaw has been there on the books since 1996. You're taking up time, energy, resources to go through an additional amendment to something that doesn't need to be amended. It's a learning moment, perhaps. The bylaw is R114 on the benefiting lot. Period. Are you doing this on other applications, rezoning land that is already zoned for the proposed use? I haven't seen it in any of the agendas that I reviewed, but it's happening here. I just question why. Thank you.
Are you good, Member O'Reilly?
Not quite. Can you, through you to Doug, can you live with it as it is? I know what you said, but it...
No, I cannot. Professionally, it doesn't need to be there. It doesn't need to be part of the process. It wasn't asked to be part of the process. It wasn't part of the application. Staff have made this decision on their own, and I don't know why.
Okay, we're not here to debate. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any further questions of Mr. Carroll? Councillor Warren, you're good?
I'd just like to hear from Leah Barry.
I think Mr. Okawat answered the question for Mr. Carroll, so that the decision will be up to PAC as their recommendation, right? Is there any further questions for Mr. Carroll at this time? Member Barkwell?
Are you suggesting we should not vote for this amendment?
Not in the least, Mr. Chairman. I'm asking that you amend the draft bylaw so that it is properly worded. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, thanks. And maybe through you, Mr. Chair, and Member Warren, thank you for the opportunity. A couple things. We do look at this as an opportunity for the public to also be educated and be able to, for convenience, to see on one schedule what the decision on the rezoning for the entire property is. So that's very helpful in our opinion. Additionally, it has been discussed through the previous consent process, and the benefiting parcels zoning was noted there with the direction, regardless of what was contained in the application, that the overall intent is being met by what is being presented through the planner today. We think it's entirely appropriate. There is absolutely no additional expense or resource that has been extended by staff or any other city resources to create this schedule in the bylaw as it's drafted, and we would recommend that the committee review this matter as recommended by staff.
Any further questions from committee of Mr. Carroll? Everybody's good? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to the application? Anyone from the public wishing to speak to this application? Calling a third and final time. Anyone from the public wishing to speak to this application? Seeing and hearing none, committee, your recommendation to council. Member O'Reilly?
Hearing both the discussion from both sides, I'll just move the recommendation that the zoning bylaw to the Township of Rome Township Bylaw 6-87 respecting application D06-2026-006 substantially in the form attached Appendix D to report plan 2026-028 be approved and adopted by council.
Seconder for the motion, Councillor Warren.
Oh, there's one more paragraph. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, amend the township and amend the township. The zoning bylaw amendment to the City of Kawartha Lakes Rural Zoning Bylaw 2024-113 respecting application D06-2026-006 substantially in the form attached to the Appendix C to report plan 2026-028 be approved and adopted by council. Right?
At the mayor and clerk.
Yeah, well, that's the mayor. Mayor and clerk be authorized.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Warren. Any further discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. That brings us to item 3.3, Plan 2026-029, applications to amend the Kawartha Lakes official plan with draft plan of subdivision at 296 Angeline Street South, Lindsay Ops, Melody Gardens, Inc. Mr. Dunlop.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Ben Dunlop, and I'm the planner on this file. Today, we're discussing an application for an official plan amendment and draft plan of subdivision. The subject lands are located at 296 Angeline Street South in Ops and are known as the Finney subdivision. The applicant is proposing to establish a residential subdivision consisting of 370 detached dwellings, 173 townhouse dwellings, and an additional parcel of land to be dedicated to the city for affordable housing, as well as blocks for parks and open space, natural heritage system, and stormwater and sanitary facilities. The staff report is being presented and received for information purposes only. The subject lands have an area of 32.3 hectares or about 80 acres, and the subdivision will be accessed via its frontage along Angeline Street South. The lands are municipally serviced and are currently being used for agriculture. Surrounding uses abutting or adjacent to the subject lands include the following. There's a secondary school to the north, the Scugog River and Lindsay Golf and Country Club to the east, the Lindsay Agricultural Society to the south, and rural and agricultural lands to the west. The subject lands are designated rural on Schedule A3 of the City of Kawartha Lakes Official Plan 2012, and portion of the lands are also designated significant woodlands, unevaluated wetland, water bodies, and intake protection zone 3. The subject lands are zoned community zone and hazard land zone under a ministerial zoning order, OREG 4022. This slide shows the 3 properties that OREG 4022 apply to, and the Finney subject lands are shown alone on the following slide, here outlined in red. While the MZO secures the as-of-right zoning permissions and the physical envelope for the proposed structures, the concurrent official plan amendment and draft plan of subdivision applications are required to execute the development. The proposed official plan amendment and draft plan of subdivision applications are needed to bring the subject lands into the settlement area boundary of the official plan and assign land use designations under the framework of the Lindsay secondary plan. The related draft plan of subdivision application will establish a lot pattern within the plan of subdivision. To this point, no comments from the public were received ahead of this meeting. And technical review is currently underway. So staff are undertaking in-depth review of the submission materials. Staff are not in a position to make a decision on this application until outstanding items are addressed. A third-party peer reviewer has been engaged to review the traffic impact assessment. A third-party reviewer will be engaged to review the noise report when it's received. And staff are currently working with the applicant to address deficiencies noted in the application. Technical studies to be updated include the following. The traffic impact study will be updated in response to peer review comments, and a separate study may be required to include aspects of transit and active transportation and tie in the submitted trails plan. Generally, studies and reports required under terms of reference need to be expanded upon and submitted under separate cover. They include an existing conditions report, an urban design brief to be updated and analyze the policies of the Lindsay secondary plan, and a community facilities and placemaking plan. Once these matters have been addressed, the application can return to PAC for a recommendation. Planning staff respectfully recommend this report be received for information and the application to be returned back to PAC for a decision at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you for that review. Committee, any questions of Mr. Dunlop at this time? Member Nguyen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see on the map that there is a portion of the back of the lot closer to the river where it's identified as hazard land zone. And I see clearly there's no building, but what will be in that area? It's going to be left cleared, or will there be trees? How will we ensure that the hazard land will, I guess, not pose a safety issue for the residents that have their homes right there?
Through the chair, thank you for the question. I believe the proposed designation for those lands will be either parks and open space or environmental protection. And I think as a condition of draft approval, there may be some materials that are required to be provided to homeowners along with fencing that will give instructions about that area.
Member Nguyen?
Thank you. Sorry, as a follow-up, I guess, what is the factor that causes it to be classified as hazard? Just trying to understand what is a safety concern with that designation.
Through the chair, thank you for the question. Hazard lands it's a zone given under the MZO. So I think it has to do with just the river being there and the natural area.
Member Barkwell?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I do support this application. I think it's a great addition to housing in the city of Kawartha Lakes. I would like to ask a question about, on page 41 of the report that was presented, they talk about the paragraph 32 of the Master Development Agreement Plan, and Master Agreement, and it talks about the affordable housing, the 38 units for this subject land. And it says that they intend to use, I think it was section 2, that the applicant has chosen to meet this requirement through a combination of land and cash in lieu of construction, option 2. at the agreed upon density of 50 affordable housing units per hectare. As a person who's been involved with the community for a great number of years, and the city has talked, and a lot of people have talked about affordable housing, and we finally have an opportunity where a developer has put aside some land that could be built out now. And I think that's the issue that I like to go back to staff and to make discussion. The federal government has gone out of its way to try to provide HST rebates to allow first-time buyers to get into the market. Our own growth management strategy that's in place advocates for mixed housing and certainly affordable for young couples to get started. The minister's zoning, the MZO order actually was put in place to allow developers to use land that they have purchased at a lesser price to build out faster and to do to make mixed housing for the community. So I really do hope that this will be rethought. We need affordable housing now. It's only 10% of the number of homes that are being built. And I hope that that this will be considered. I think it's extremely, extremely important that we don't take money and try to build out in the future. The city doesn't do that. Developers do that, and I think the city has made an agreement that on behalf of the community to start building more affordable housing. The opportunity is here, and I hope they'll take it. Thank you.
Member O'Reilly?
Thank you. Just to reiterate some of the words it says, it certainly go a long ways to help our housing supply, and I think the zoning standards have already been set by the MZO, so I think we're just waiting to see if people have any issues today, and the other following agencies will come next, and we'll get a complete report coming back to us.
Okay. Any further questions for Mr. Dunlop? Everybody's good? Okay, thank you.
Just a minute, sorry. Could I have his response to what I said? Thank you.
Okay. I don't know. Yeah, I think we'll go to their planner and see what they're open to. That there really wasn't a question there from you for staff. It was more of a statement and a position and a point of view. And I think you got that position and point of view across.
There was a question mark at the end of my statement.
For
Sorry, to the chair, can you please repeat the question?
Does the applicant, owner, or their agent wish to speak to the application?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Federico Palacios. I'm a planner at the Bigley Area Group, and I'm here to provide a bit of an overview on these applications. So this is the official plan amendment and the draft plan of subdivision applications for the land zone as 296 Angeline Street South. Next slide, please. So on the screen, you'll see the subject site located to the north of Highway 7, and it's located just east of Angeline Street. Next slide, please. So on this slide, we've provided a bit of a summary of the application. So as discussed, a minister's zoning order, or MZO, was granted in January of 2022. And then the MZO serves to zone the subject site both as community zone and hazard land zone. The community zone is the portion hatched in black, and that permits a range of residential and commercial uses. And the hazard land zone, as discussed, is hatched in green and permits only uses associated with flood and erosion hazards and control. A master development agreement was made in December of 2022 and executed in February of 2023. Our team made an initial draft plan submission application in December of 2023, and this submission, which is the second draft plan submission in response to staff comments, and the first official plan amendment submission was made just now in January. Next slide, please. So while the MZO assigns zone labels, and permissions to the site, it has no effect on the official plan. So on this slide here, you'll see the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan schedule A2, which is the land use schedule. And currently the site, which is identified in the blue outline, is zoned or designated rather as rural, and it is outside of the urban boundary. Next slide, please. So the proposed amendment seeks to expand the urban settlement boundary, which is the blue line on your screen, to encompass the site. And the amendment seeks to designate the lands as urban settlement area, which is the red designation. So in addition to that, the OPA seeks to expand the Lindsay settlement boundary in the secondary plan to also include the subject site, which is the dashed black line around the site. And we are proposing certain land use designations, including residential, open space, parks and open space, which is the light green, and the environmental protection designation. The environmental protection designation is generally in alignment with the hazardous land zone from the MZO. Next slide, please. This is the draft plan of subdivision from our second application following revisions. So we're proposing a total of 581 residential dwelling units, 370 being single detached homes, 170 being townhomes rather, and 38 units provided on a medium density block, which is that purple block at the south and southwest end of the subdivision. We're proposing approximately 1.13 hectares of parks and open space, 2.87 hectares of natural heritage along the Scugog River, and stormwater management pond and pumping station to the east as well. Next page, please. So on this slide, you'll just see the proposed pedestrian circulation and connectivity. We're proposing sidewalks on all streets, at least one side. We're also proposing a multi-use path for cyclists and pedestrians along Street A, which is that east-west northern street you see there. And we're protecting for future trail connectivity to the north and the east and around the stormwater management pond. Next slide, please. So as discussed as part of the history of this application, a master development agreement, was executed for this site, as well as two other sites, being the Gateway site and the Callahan site. And so as part of this agreement, up to 2,058 units were planned across the three sites, 581 of which are on the subject site. And as part of the agreement, there was a commitment for 206 affordable dwelling units. We are providing a total of 210 affordable dwelling units across the three sites. 38 affordable units are to be provided on one medium density block on the subject site on Angeline Street, 57 on the Callahan site, and 115 affordable units on the Gateway site. So these affordable units are to be provided, as I mentioned, on a medium density block, which will be conveyed to the city for the city to develop through a site plan approval application in the future. And on the next slide, you'll see the subject site just contextualized, in southern Lindsay. So our site, the subject site, is to the left off of Angeline. The Gateway site is at the center along Highway 7, and the Callahan site, is to the right. So these are all being brought forward by the same landowner through the master development agreement that was mentioned previously. And next slide, please. This is, again, just a rough timeline, as we had discussed, with the minister's zoning order happening in January of 2022, the master's development agreement with those affordable housing stipulations in February 2023, our initial submission in December of 2023, and our second submission in January of 2026. We expect to continue refining our applications and addressing staff comments as those continue to be provided, and working towards coming back to a future PAC towards a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Barkwell, does that begin to answer your question or concern?
Was that a question? It begins to, yeah. Because are you going to do this public meeting, or is that just for information, or are you going to do a presentation that was handed out? I have questions about that.
I think that's the next file.
Yeah, so what you said was that medium density lot 403, is going to be conveyed to the city. That's your intention, to allow the city to build it out. So you are sticking with your intention now is to convey the land and give cash in lieu of, and not build out new homes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the question.
Homes on that lot. Yeah, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for the question. Our intention is to convey that parcel, the medium density block, on the subject site. I don't believe there is an intention to provide cash in lieu, as the requirement for the affordable housing component will be met across the three sites, being the subject site, the Callahan site, and the Gateway site in combination, which was what was agreed upon through the MDA.
But the presentation for the Gateway site says that it's going to be cash and land in lieu, I believe. So I don't think that. So what you're saying is that these ones you're not going to build it out. You're going to allow one of the other partners, but yet you say that each one of these has a certain number that is required. So you're just deferring this instead of doing it.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for the question. As mentioned, we're going to be conveying to the city. I think, yeah, I don't know that there's going to be cash in lieu happening.
Hi, sorry, this is Michael Testaguza, also from the Bigley Area Group here, and thank you for the question through the chair. I do think we can get back to staff, back through information to you through staff eventually, but at this point, the intention of that master development agreement ultimately was either to provide the housing or provide the land, so there was the optionality in there. So the land is being provided at this point for the city to develop that, the affordable housing itself, but we will get back to you with further details. I think is probably the best way to do that.
Well, on the handout that I have that came out, it said under paragraph 32, option 2, part A of the agreement, the affordable housing requirement for the subject lands amount to 0.76 of an acre, hectare, sorry, and these results in the requirement for 38 affordable housing on the subject land. The balance of the required affordable units are to be provided for as part of the other subdivision, so the balance of the other affordable. So not the 38, but the balance of the 38. So the story you're telling is different than what I read.
Sorry, and to clarify, I do think there's some complexity here, so I do appreciate the question and flushing it out on the public record so that everybody can understand. So the master development agreement was executed over 3 parcels of land and requires for 10% of the units or the land area to be affordable. So the 38, we're providing, I believe, just over 500 units on this site. So 10% would be closer to a 50 units. And that's kind of back calculated into an assumption on the number of units you can get per hectare. So we're saying that we're providing 38 units on this site. And if we weren't going to provide the balance on other lands owned by the developer, there would be cash in lieu owing. But in this instance, because the agreement was executed over the 3 parcels, and you'll hear further with respect to the Callahan parcel later in the Gateway, those 2 subdivisions are over providing, And this subdivision is slightly under providing, but again, over the three, it is all being done ultimately via a land conveyance. Does that make more sense?
I understand what you're saying. I don't think it makes sense. But I do want to put it on the public record. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any further, or Member Nguyen?
Yes, thank you for being here to respond to our questions. I will confess that I'm not very well versed with the MZO that was issued for your particular project. So for this one, is the requirement that affordable housing be provided by the developer? So if you don't, I guess, build the houses, as Member Barkwell has mentioned, then not only will you be providing the land, but also the funds to build? Or is that the city's responsibility to build on top of the land? And if that's the case, then there's obviously a discrepancy between the land value and developed land with residences. So where do we meet in terms of the discrepancy?
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for the question. I can start. I might pass it back to Michael from my office. But to my understanding, the MZO is not dictating the affordable housing component. That's being dictated through the master development agreement, which was signed with the city. And my understanding is, yes, we would be conveying the land to the city so that the city would then advance that land through the development process and deliver that land. The city would deliver those units on those parcels, essentially.
And through the chair, the only thing I would add in that regard is obviously the servicing, the preparation of that land is all done through the draft plan of subdivision. So all that pre-work that goes into having what is otherwise right now a farm field kind of in a position where it can be developed. So the installation of all that infrastructure is going to be done through the draft plan of subdivision. So our client is obviously going to undertake all of the approvals for that, to provide a developable block to the city, as well as developing all of the infrastructure and any necessary upgrades that will be required in order to facilitate, development of that land. So we're building the roads, we're building the sewers, we're building the pump stations. Any external road network improvements will be constructed by the client as agreed through the eventual subdivision agreement. So that's all going to be obviously with the client as well.
Member Nguyen?
Thank you very much for that response. I appreciate that. I guess this is a follow-up, but I guess to the staff in terms of what the agreement actually says in terms of the requirements to provide affordable housing. What does that actually mean? Is it just getting the land and then we have to have taxpayer or provincial money or some kind of government grants in order to build those service lots into affordable housing, or what is the intention? Thank you.
I'll let the director take that, but I think some of what it is, right, is conveying the land. There's a million definitions as to what affordable housing is, and one developer's definition to another developer may be different, and it may be different from the municipality, right? I think what is being proposed and what's in the agreement, right, is the land is going to be provided, the land is going to be brought to a point that it can be developed, and the actual development will be on the city to build the affordable housing that they want or they feel they need. But I will let Director Barry take that.
Mr. Chair, you did a good job. There isn't a whole lot more I would add. Just perhaps to dovetail through you to the member, that the development agreement is a document that provides options. And so as we recently discussed with another development, also subject to a development agreement similar in nature, there are options for cash in lieu of building units or land. Option 1. Option 2, land to be conveyed to the city to use for affordable housing purposes. And what that defined housing typology looks like is to be determined. And then finally, that the developer build units as part of the development. So there are those options, and they are to be negotiated through the application process. The developer, through his development consulting team, is working closely both with planning but with our human services housing manager. So these are complex details, and in particular for currently one subdivision, and we'll hear in a few moments the second subdivision. These are sort of early stages of discussion. It's the first public meeting that we're introducing yourselves to, as well as the community. Certainly taking all this information back, as also Mr. Testacuza just identified, and be able to round out this conversation on the specifics of how the affordable housing component would be integrated into both the final subdivision agreements, which are critical to the official plan amendment application, through to the draft approval, through to final approval and a subdivision agreement. Those are steps that are still ahead of us, and that's where we'll see those details, and they will be presented to this committee for a decision before we move forward.
Okay. Mayor Elmsley, did you still want to jump in here?
No, I was going to not be as articulate as the director, but words along those lines, that it's a complex situation and there are alternatives that are going to be looked at by staff, and recommendations will come forward probably to PAC and probably eventually to council for those decisions to be made. So I think that in some ways it's better if the city builds affordable housing, because then we build it to our standard, to our requirements, and we're not dependent upon a builder and perhaps their thoughts on what affordable housing should look like. So, you know, it's early days for this. We're just basically receiving the report, and we'll move on from there.
Any further questions? Member Nguyen?
Sorry, just to reconcile a few things in my mind in terms of numbers, and I'm terrible with numbers. So if you could just let me know in terms of the process that I guess the city would consider and take into consideration when it decides what should be done, because there's certainly a difference in terms of the value of the land, value to build at that moment, or a year from the time that the site plan agreement is entered into, and the development actually happening, versus the city doing it 5-10 years once they have a mandate. So cash in lieu or land in lieu of meeting this requirement, how does that determine, and how does the inflationary factor gets factored in, or if it gets factored in at all?
Sure, through the member. A couple pieces there, and hopefully this helps somewhat, but again, I am hearing you, and so if it's not clear at this point, we will try to clarify more so as we move along. So the master development agreement does specify that the cash payments would be the equivalent of 4% of the appraised value of the lands. Okay, so the appraised value is something that, and forgive me if I'm being obvious, is based on an appraisal. The appraisal is typically something that is done closer to the time of clearing conditions of draft approval, because we are at the end of the process at that point. And also the Planning Act legislates when an appraisal can't be, and it can't be after a draft approval, but beforehand. So that's one point. And further to that, the cash in lieu payment would also factor into, in terms of its specificity, a condition of draft approval. So the language, the amount, the percentage, the timing is also explicitly known, and forgive us, but because, especially with respect to this subdivision, we're at the second submission stage, there are still refinements to be made, as pointed out by the consulting planning team. So it is somewhat premature to get into those specifics, however, meaning presenting your committee and the public with a full comprehensive condition set. That is something the committee does see with other developments when the time is appropriate. We're just not there yet with this one, simply because it's a public meeting for the official plan amendment application. Conditions of draft approval will come in due course. So cash in lieu payments, when needed, where needed, would be itemized through a condition of draft approval. And of course, payment would be needed to be made before the registration of the plan. And Mr. Chair, those are my comments.
Okay. Any further questions at this time? Everybody's good? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to this application? Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to this application? Calling a third and final time, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to this application? Okay, seeing and hearing none, committee, your recommendation to council? Mayor Elmsley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That report plan 2026-029, applications to amend the Kawartha Lakes official plan with draft plan of subdivision at 296 Angeline Street South, Lindsay, Ops, Melody Garden Inc., be received for information.
Seconded by Councillor Warren. Any discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. Thank you. That then now brings us to item 3.4, Plan 2026-031, applications to amend the Kawartha Lakes official plan with draft plan of subdivision at 137 Kawartha Lakes Road 36, Lindsay Ops, Bromont Lindsay 3 Corp, and Bromont Lindsay 4 Corp. Mr. Gouvet, go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Timothy. I'm the planner on this file. Today we are discussing an application for an official plan amendment. So as mentioned, this is the second of two Bromont official plan amendments being discussed today. The first having just been presented by my colleague Ben and known as Finney. Both official plan amendments pertain to the same ministerial zoning order. So that's OREG 4022. The subject lands are located at 137 Highway 36 in Ops and are known as Callahan. The proposal consists of 768 detached residential dwellings and 267 townhouse units across 63.1 hectares. The staff report is being presented and received for informational purposes only today. So looking at the site as a whole, it totals 65.6 hectares with 290 meters along a frontage along Highway 36, and access is proposed to be off of Highway 36 and McGuire Street, which is to the west of the site. Surrounding uses for this property include residential to the north, to the east is Highway 36, and agricultural uses to the south, agricultural uses and residential uses, and to the west, residential and the Lindsay Golf and Country Club. Subject lands in this case are designated prime agriculture and environmental protection on Schedule A3 of the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan. They are outside of the Lindsay secondary boundary. As you can see here, the Lindsay secondary plan boundary is that black dashed line. And they are zoned, in the MZO, which is OREG 4022, their zone community zone as per map 287. The application is proposing to align the official plan with the MZO. Well, this MZO secures the as of right zoning permissions and a physical envelope for the proposed structures. This concurrent official plan amendment and the draft plan of subdivision applications are required to execute the development itself. In terms of comments from the public, we have received a handful of comments in the form of questions and requests for information. Particularly in reference to the crossing of the rail trail at McGuire Street and just general questions about the nature of the applications. These were responded to by phone and by email by myself personally. Staff today are not in a position to make a decision on this application as the submission has a number of outstanding items and details which need to be addressed by the applicant. An existing conditions report is required. The urban design report needs updates to refer to the OPA and Lindsay secondary plan policies. Transportation plan and active transportation strategy is required. It will need to address that trail crossing at McGuire Street. Standalone community facilities and placemaking study is required. A standalone commercial needs study is required, and a fiscal impact study is required, which will be based on the preferred land use option once it's finalized. So although a number of these items are partly accounted for by the application, they just lack the detail needed for staff to effectively assess the application. As well, the traffic impact study is being peer reviewed. So once these matters have been addressed, the application can return to PAC and we'll be able to proceed with a recommendation. So planning staff respectfully recommend that this report be received for information and the application be referred back to PAC. Thank you.
Thank you for the review. Committee, any questions of Mr. Gouveia at this time? Deputy Mayor Richardson.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Just when you mentioned about the traffic study still underway, is that taking into consideration Highway 36? We've seen what's going on Lindsay Street on the west entrance right now with the expansion through there. Are we anticipating the same type of expansion on 36 with, signals, turning lanes, road widening?
Thank you. Through the chair, thank you for the question. I do not personally know the specifics about updates to signalization and so forth on Highway 36. However, the peer reviewer reached out to myself to get some clarity on upcoming similar projects and also to understand what other developments are proposed in close proximity that might influence the traffic as well. And I've looped Public Works and other members of the planning department in to ensure that those questions get answered and that the traffic study can be reviewed appropriately.
Okay. Any further questions of Mr. Gouveia? Member Barkwell?
So the medium density and high density, block 1 and 2, I'm having trouble with the colors here. I can't find them. Can you locate them for me? So that's the block 1, block 2 that are the apartments for high density, or are those the affordable?
Yeah, I would have to look back at the plan itself here, which I can pull up if you give me a moment. Sorry, what were the two blocks that you were asking about?
In the thing here, it's the block 1 and block 2. They're apartments. So.
Through the chair, you're just looking to understand where they are located on the concept plan?
Yeah, I am. I'm not sure where they are.
Yes. I'll just have to look at a different version of it here.
Okay, I'll ask the developer. He probably has a better idea then. Sorry.
Sure, yeah, we can wait for that time as well.
I'm assuming on the map, I think it's block A and block B off of 36, but that's just my assumption.
Yes, through the chair, I recognize that the version of the concept plan shown on screen is not the clearest, just the way that the file downloaded. So I can understand there may be some just confusion there, but.
Okay, any further questions to Mr. Gouveia at this time? Everybody's good? Does the applicant, owner, or their agent wish to speak to the application?
There we go. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of committee. Happy to do a brief presentation. I think this is very similar to the Melody Gardens in terms of the overview provided by the planner. That was great. I can just briefly do that if my presentation can be put up. That was the presentation, Mr. Barkwell, you were holding up earlier. That was mine. I'm a planner with Bousfields. I've been working on this one for many years, and so I'm happy to be here to present the OPA and subdivision for the Callahan lands. If we go to the next, maybe 2 slides. You can see here in a big part of this application is obviously we're talking about blending this in with the existing community. To the west, you have the existing countryside development on the west side of the trail. The yellow dots are the Victoria Rail Trail. I know there was a comment about that crossing where McGuire is going to come across. You can see the existing McGuire is going to come into the subdivision. So we'll have to pay close attention to how that's going to be how that's going to be worked through the subdivision process, whether it's signed with stop signs, etc., how that's going to work. You can see on the other side there's Trans-Canada Trail and then Highway 36 on the east side. And Highway 36 will be and is reviewed through the traffic study. Just to answer that question, that will be addressed in terms of whether it'll be signalized or stopped, controlled. Next slide. This is just an overview of the three sites together. I think you've seen this. I just wanted to highlight the affordable housing questions. So along this, and I happen to be fortunate enough to be after the Melody Gardens. So I have the master development agreement with me. And so there were two options. In the Gateway, there's actually a nursing home. The Gateway is the southerly one, just along Highway 7 at Lindsay Street on your screen. That's the one. That one had a nursing home block, and then it actually had 3 medium density blocks. And 2 of those would be to accommodate affordable housing. And the size of those blocks, we have an estimated number of units. That will be conveyed. The city's discretion could be to add more units. So we've got the minimum allowable there to meet the agreement. And the options, there was 2 options. One was to construct and not convey. The other one was to convey, but also provide cash. So there is going to be cash. And that's at the, as mentioned by Ms. Berry, at the 4% rate, which is notwithstanding at the time when this was being undertaken, there was no CBC bylaw. Community benefit charges was a new thing. And the agreement says, despite the fact whether there's a CBC or not, 4% should be allocated as cash. So on this site, Callahan, we have one of the blocks, 57 units. Of course, it's to the discretion of the city when that's conveyed. That could be increased. It may be decreased. It depends on the design. And then also that cash is meant to be allocated to, and it's stated in the agreement, and this could be changing over time, but it's meant to be allocated to the city's affordable housing program. Just to give you that overview. I think with the next slide, I can get into more when I get into the subdivision. This is just the MZO map. We've all seen this. I don't think I need to belabor this. We can go to the next map. Next slide. Did you skip one? Okay, yes, this is an important one. So this is the subdivision as we have it. This is a resubmission. There's been one submission. This is the resubmission. So this is the latest submission. And just to assist Mr. Barkwell in your question, and it may be the issue may be in our drafting people trying to trick you. They mentioned block 1 and block 2 in the stats, and they're labeled as block A and block B. That's the unfortunate circumstance you're faced with. So we can fix that. The northerly block, which is the brown block that the cursor is on now, that's meant to be the affordable housing block, just north of the creek, where we have an open space area which will be designated both parks and also environmental protection. And on the southerly portion, there would also be another high density block, which would have, again, the ability to do a medium density development. And so the focus of this subdivision is to put the red commercial, so you can see commercial, 2 commercial blocks on Highway 36, and then the higher density all on Highway 36 along the busier street, away from the existing community, which is more to the west and to the north. What you have abutting to the north and to the west is going to be more the low density type of development. And you can see the sort of lighter brown color adjacent to the red commercial and to the high density blocks. Those are the townhouse forms. So if you're living to the west or to the north, you're going to have, as a transition, more of the lower rise single detached homes. There will be a connection at McGuire. That's the collector connection from Highway 36 through and over to Logie. And then you'll have also 2 connections to the existing community at the north end, those local streets, at Troe and at Brock. All of this yet to be reviewed and confirmed, obviously, but just that would be sort of the existing connections to the existing community. And just outside of this development, there's a blue, on the northwest corner, you can see the blue area. That's a future school site. That's been set aside for school to be obviously undertaken when the population reaches a stage of that requirement. So it's quite proximate to the development. As with Melody Gardens, there will be sidewalks, there will be trail connections. We're cognizant of not necessarily having those trail connections. We do have one to the Victoria Rail Trail on the northwest corner, but we're trying to prevent a lot of necessarily pedestrian activity. I know it's motorized right now. Lots of discussion maybe about how that might change over the future, but I think the idea would be at the McGuire crossing to pay close attention to, and I know it was mentioned by the planner, how to control that. Next slide. This is just showing the OP map. It would be included as a settlement area. Next slide. This would be the secondary plan. So the secondary plan would include the yellow residential, and then the red commercial, and then the green EP area where the creek is on the south corner, and then those sort of lighter green areas would be the park spaces. And I think with that, this is the same, you've seen this already with the Melody Gardens presentation, just indicating the affordable housing. This would be providing for that 57 units. Again, it's a 1.13 hectare conveyance. It's going to be reasonably able to accommodate 57 affordable units, could be more depending on the city's preference at the time. With that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Mayor Elmsley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. I just have one concern. What you've identified as affordable housing, where it is, we don't have public transportation. And my experience is that a lot of the affordable housing and public housing, people don't have their own vehicles. So I'm wondering, is this cast in stone, or is there an opportunity? Because I think it was closer to, for instance, the top of the development closer to Logie Street or closer to Lindsay Street. It probably would be more convenient for the residents.
Yeah, I mean, the affordable housing blocks, as they stated now, they could be shifted to the Gateway site too, like more. That's possible. This is Severio Montemorano, just spoke to me, he's with Bromont. However, I would suggest that may be the case, that they wouldn't have vehicles, but it's not necessarily always the case. I do agree, but it is also on a collector. But there is going to be a review by staff in terms of obviously how that transit access could work. I think it being on the collector is important because then you can easily get over to Logie. But it's something we can take back. It's a good comment. We can take that back.
Any further questions? Member Nguyen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, sir, with respect to the future school site, will that be serviced as well so that it would be ready, or it's just vacant land, really unserviced, to be conveyed to the municipality?
Yeah, the school site isn't part of this subdivision. It's an existing site owned by the school board, and it's been there for many years. And so it would be to their prerogative. Obviously, the school board would be circulated, and they would determine the appropriate time to utilize that if need be.
Member Willock?
Through your chair, I see the biggest concern is the rail trail in McGuire, because you have snowmobiles and ATVs that travel at 30 and 50 kilometers an hour, and now you've got an uncontrolled intersection going through that. And we like being outside here, so you're going to have all kinds of people. Everyone's going to make the same comments, so that's just a liability hazard waiting to happen. So.
Yeah, and that'll be reviewed through the process. I did note that comment, and I had a look, from here down through Bethany. There's some stop controls at certain locations. This is going to be, for more pedestrian traffic too, so we want to be very careful, for sure, depending. And then it goes up to Logie, and then it becomes non-motorized, but at north of where it becomes a rotary trail.
That's also the ATV trail, I think, through town. So you could have ATV trail going all the way from Bethany up north through here.
Okay.
And that is your ATV throughfare through town.
Deputy Mayor Richardson?
Thank you, through your chair. Is it okay if I ask Manager Timmins a question at this time? Just based on some of the conversations that we've been having, and I mean, this is a large-scale development. Just curious if our infrastructure is, upgrades are matching the growth and the occupancy right now? Because water and wastewater.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Through you, Chair, to the Deputy Mayor. So as you are well aware, the city undertook the growth management strategy and the water and wastewater servicing and capacity master plan recently. And through those studies, that fed into the city's long-term financial plan, where the necessary municipal upgrades will be forecasted and budgeted for. Also, to facilitate the upgrades to the municipal infrastructure to support growth, we have the development charges. So that'll help fund those the growth-related upgrades. So yes, this development has been contemplated through various master servicing studies and incorporated into the city's long-term financial plan. I hope that answers your question.
It does. It's just, like I said, it's a huge scale, and we just want to make sure that, you know, we're not playing catching up or we're not lagging behind when it comes to having this infrastructure matching this type of growth. So it's not delaying anybody.
Any further questions from committee? Everybody's good? Perfect. Thank you. Okay, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to this application? Anyone from the public? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm on the Highway 36, 136, just below the commercial, in between the commercial, and if it's going to be low-income housing.
Can we just get your name for the record first, please?
Larry Crawford.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to say, yeah, I mean, I would agree with low-income housing being closer to maybe a possible school. And I don't know what size you're talking a building it is. I don't know what the building height is. But if there's going to be more people in a heighted building, it's closer to the school, easier to walk to school, whatever. That's my opinion, but thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else from the public wishing to speak to this application? Calling a third and final time. Anyone from the public wishing to speak to this application? Seeing and hearing none. Committee, your recommendations for council. Councillor Warren.
Through you, that report plan 2026-031 applications to amend the Kawartha Lakes official plan with draft plan of subdivision at 137 Kawartha Lakes Road 36, Lindsay Ops, Bromont Lindsay 3 Corporation and Bromont Lindsay 4 Corp. be received for information.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Richardson. Any discussion? Calling the question. All in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. Thank you. That brings us to item 3.5, ED 2026-018. Archaeology policy amendments to the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan. Ms. Turner, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Oh, sorry, 1 second. So I'm bringing forward this report today to discuss a proposed official plan amendment. This official plan amendment is initiated by the city as a response to our archaeological management plan. So for some background, for the committee, the archaeological management plan was adopted by council in September 2025 and included archaeological potential mapping as well as a policy recommendations report, which included 21 recommendations across a variety of city service areas impacted by archaeology. Recommendation number 2 of the official Recommendation number 2 of the policy recommendations report was the amendment of the official plan and policies within it to strengthen the protection of archaeological resources within the city. The consultants who prepared the RCMP, they drafted proposed amendments to be included in the policy recommendations report. Oh no, that is not what we want. Oh my goodness. Okay, apparently I don't know how to use a slideshow. All right, so this proposed OPA, it includes policy amendments across the OP, as well as the introduction of 4 new policies. It strengthens existing archaeological policies across the OP through the addition of stronger and consistent language. One thing that was noted during the archaeological management plan development is that our OP is actually relatively good with regard to the conservation of archaeological resources. We have some good policies within the OP already. However, some changes were required to provide consistency across the OP, to ensure that our policies aligned with current direction from the province, as well as to introduce some new tools to help us protect archaeological resources across the municipality. We also included specific references to the ArcMP to tie the 2 policy documents together to ensure that the official plan referenced the archaeological management plan when referring to the conservation of archaeological resources. There are updates to outdated language and policy and legislation references, as many of the previous archaeological policies or policies related to archaeology were made at different times. And do not reflect the current provincial policy and legislation language. This includes a number of definitions as well as references to the current provincial planning statement and early engagement with Indigenous communities. The proposed policies include amendments to Section 10, which is culture and heritage, and which specifically deals with archaeological resources and their conservation in the municipality. Appendix A and C, which include study requirements for archaeology as part of development applications, as well as general amendments to sections across the official plan that impact archaeology. Nope, I still don't know how to use this. Oh, there we go. So there are 4 new policies that are introduced as part of this proposed official plan amendment. The first is, oh my, just gonna stop touching things, okay. The first is with regard to community improvement plans. So the language that has been included in here is the addition of enabling language to permit the city to fund archaeological assessments and or the addressing of unexpected fines by private property owners in a future CIP. We currently have a community improvement plan, which runs until 2028. So this OPA would, or part of the OPA would not amend our current CIP. However, it provides enabling language to include funding for this purpose in the 2028 CIP, which will begin development in 2027. Just for some context on this for the members of the committee, costs related to archaeology are a significant barrier for private property owners, particularly with regard to unexpected fines. Funding sources for these are fairly minimal, and the addition of this policy would allow the city to develop funding streams specifically through its CIP to support property owners who may have unexpected fines on their property when undertaking construction or other activities. The next proposed new policy is with regard to the use of the holding symbol. And this would include the addition of explicit language to permit the use of the holding symbol to restrict development until an archaeological assessment has been completed on specific lands. As you will notice, actually from 2 applications on this agenda, we already do this. However, the current language within the official plan refers very generally to the use of the holding symbol, to allow for technical studies generally to be completed in future prior to development occurring. The new policy that is proposed is a very explicit policy to allow the holding symbol to be used to require archaeological assessment. This provides some clarity to developers and property owners who are looking to undertake future development on lands where this might apply. The next proposed new policy is with regard to site plan control. So this would include enabling language to permit the city to use site plan control to protect archaeological sites on low-density residential lots near water as permitted by the Planning Act. Once again, similar to the Community Improvement Plan policy amendment, this does not actually change our site plan control bylaw. This is effectively language that tees up, for lack of a better word, the ability for the city to amend bylaw 2016-069, which is our site plan control bylaw. The rationale for undertaking this policy amendment is that we have a significant gap in terms of archaeological protection around low-density residential lots near water. We have a substantial number of archaeological sites, particularly that relate to Indigenous archaeology that are close to water, where we have limited controls and protections for those sites without this sort of policy. So this would allow us to look at our site plan control bylaw and develop policies to identify and protect those sites through site plan control. One thing I should mention is that the province is currently looking at some amendments to how site plan control is used. So exactly what that looks like will be dependent on provincial direction, which will hopefully be coming forward in the not too distant future. The last amendment is with regard to parks and parkland dedication. So this is the addition of language to allow the city to accept intact archaeological sites as parkland. This would include large archaeological sites as well as burials. Typically, this would be something that would be the case in, say, a large subdivision where an archaeological site has been identified as part of the early studies that are required for a subdivision application. This does not change the processes under the Funeral, Burial, and Cremation Services Act in terms of the city taking on a cemetery or a burial registered with the Bereavement Authority of Ontario onto its cemetery license. So that remains a separate process. This just allows us to take some of those sites as parkland, which is of benefit in terms of preserving those sites in the long term, as well as for developers who may encounter a large archaeological site on lands that they're planning on developing. Okay, so one of the main outcomes of the official plan amendment is increased protection for Indigenous sites across Kawartha Lakes. So we have a lot of archaeological sites in Kawartha Lakes, and between 80 and 85% of them are Indigenous in origin. It's a huge number. We do have a lot of non-Indigenous sites as well, but they are vastly dwarfed by the number of Indigenous sites that we have. Some of the Indigenous sites in Kawartha Lakes are very large, and many of them include burials and are complex. The Williams Treaties First Nations were closely involved in the development of the Archaeological Management Plan, and consultation has continued throughout the implementation phase. The official plan amendment was circulated to the Williams Treaties First Nations in January and March of 2026 for review and commenting ahead of the formal circulation that's required under the Planning Act. The proposed OPA is broadly supported by the Williams Treaties First Nations to assist in the conservation of Indigenous archaeological resources. So one of the items that Council has brought forward on a number of times throughout its current term, as well as in our current strategic plan, is the need to advance reconciliation within the municipality. The adoption of the OPA is specifically intended to advance Council's commitment to reconciliation by solidifying support for respectful preservation of Indigenous archaeological sites and fulfilling legislated requirements to consult Indigenous communities. So typically, archaeology is the trigger for Indigenous consultation with regard to development matters, as well as for many of our capital projects. And the proposed OPA implements policies to support increased engagement and consultation with regard to archaeological sites. The Archaeological Management Plan and its recommendations, including the OPA in front of you today, directly respond to the TRC calls to actions 43, 47, and 76, and I'm going to have to remind myself what those are. So number 43 is adopting and implementing UNDRIP as a framework for reconciliation. The proposed OPA responds to this call to action by recognizing and supporting cultural heritage and recognizing Indigenous rights as part of the development process. 47 is reforming colonial documents to support Indigenous rights. The proposed OPA responds to this by amending our official plan, our primary land use planning document, with a direct and tangible impact on the preservation of Indigenous cultural heritage. And 76 is the creation of ongoing strategies for the protection of burial sites, which would be directly impacted through the policies that are in front of you as part of the OPA. Oh, I'm just not having good luck with this today. In addition to advancing our commitment to reconciliation, the proposed OPA is in conformity with provincial and local policy as well as our local strategies. So Section 4.6 of the provincial planning statement directs municipalities to preserve archaeological resources and to engage early with Indigenous communities to ensure their interests are considered. The proposed OPA does that by strengthening our local archaeological policies. The City of Kawartha Lake's official plan, which is being amended through the proposed amendments, it has existing policies which support the conservation of archaeological resources. These proposed amendments strengthen existing policies and are consistent with the intent of the culture and heritage policies in our OP. The 2024 and 2027 CKL strategic plan, there are a couple of items that this touches on. The first is with regard to a vibrant and growing economy by encouraging sustainable growth and development. The OP provides clear and consistent guidelines for the preservation of archaeology within the city to assist with development planning throughout the city. It also addresses good government in terms of streamlining our policies and processes to ensure consistency in archaeological preservation and also in advancing reconciliation with First Nations. And finally, the 2025 to 2029 Economic Development Strategy has under Objective 4.4 the implementation of the Archaeological Management Plan as one of its starting actions for preserving and promoting culture and heritage across the city. And that's it. Thanks very much. And questions? Here we go.
Thank you for that overview, Ms. Turner, and I think some of your technical difficulties is from the clerk's department, just so you know. Deputy Mayor Richardson.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thanks very much for the report today, and obviously it does align with our PPS and whatnot. I'm just curious, when we talked about the CIP, are there any future financial implications as we use the CIP?
Through the chair, yes, should this language, so the adoption of the language into the OP itself does not have any specific financial implications. However, should the policies which the OP allows be adopted into a CIP, there would be financial implications regarding the budget and how that grant program would roll out. The financial implications of this particular use of the CIP would have to be developed through the 2027 redevelopment of our current CIP. So one thing about this amendment is it does not commit a future council to providing funds for that purpose. It simply provides enabling policy language should a future council wish to do so.
Mayor Elmsley.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily, for the report. As always, very detailed and well done. I think you need to learn to talk faster, though, because just following up on the CIP, you used the phrase, or somebody used the phrase, funding for private properties. Would there be a means test for that, or any private property, regardless, could apply to the CIP if it were to go that way for funding?
Through the chair, there has been some general discussion around this, which would have to be fleshed out through a CIP development. So the conversations, this was something that was talked about through the development of the Archaeological Management Plan, and it was specifically discussing your single residential property owner, they're putting on a deck, for example, and an archaeological site is developed as part of, like, surprise, you're putting on a deck and you have an archaeological site on your property. That was the scenario that was contemplated when this policy was recommended as part of the ARC-MP. So how that would roll out in terms of the CIP would be very specific to the Community Improvement Plan language and what that looked like in terms of that policy, but that the intention is for your, essentially your homeowner who is dealing with an archaeological matter, as opposed to, say, for example, a large development proponent who are doing archaeological assessments as a matter of course.
Any further, Councillor Ashmore, you had a question?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. Turner. Not sure if this is part of it, but when clients do archaeological studies, are there certain set expiration dates for archaeological studies? Because I've been asked that someone's done an archaeological study, it's 5 years old, or it's 10 years old, or even if it's 20 years old, does it still hold validity? Or is there a sort of a definite expiration date for an archaeological study that's done on a site? Just wondering if you might know that.
Through the chair, so the answer to that question is both yes and no, which I know is not really helpful, but I will provide some explanation. So we have archaeological assessments in Kawartha Lakes that have been undertaken in a wide variety of timeframes, and over particularly the past 15 years or so, the requirements for archaeological assessments have changed substantially. So in 2011, the standards and guidelines for professional archaeologists came in, which required a substantially higher level of care, professional expertise, etc., than prior to that date. So typically, say for example, we had someone come in who did an archaeological assessment 2 or 3 years ago, that would be valid. It would be in alignment with provincial legislation and policy, so we would certainly accept that. If somebody came in with an archaeological assessment for a property that was done in, say, 1995, that would be the time when we would request that an archaeological assessment be redone, because the standards in, say, the 1990s or the early 2000s are vastly different from what they are today. So we certainly do have development applications that come into the city where someone has done an archaeological assessment a number of years ago. Those are certainly valid. They're in line with current requirements for professional archaeologists and archaeology done in Ontario. So there isn't really an expiration date per se, but certainly we usually use 2011 as a cutoff for when the standards changed. So we do not accept really old archaeological assessments.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions of Ms. Turner at this time? Everybody's good? Okay. And I guess we don't have an applicant owner or their agent. So is there anybody from the public wishing to speak to this file? Anyone from the public wishing to speak to the file? Third and final call, anyone from the public wishing to speak to the file? Seeing and hearing none, is there a recommendation to council? Mayor Elmsley?
That report, ED 2026-018, Archaeological Policy Amendments to the City of Kawartha Lakes Official Plan, be received for information. That the official plan amendments substantially in the form attached as Appendix A to report ED 2026-018 be approved and adopted by council at the regular council meeting of June 23rd, 2026, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the documents required by the approval of this report.
Seconder for the motion, Member O'Reilly. Any discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. Thank you. And with that, this public meeting held under the Planning Act is now adjourned. And I think by way of the time that before we go through the rest of the items on this afternoon's agenda, we will take a short break. So we will come back here for 3 p.m. sharp. Don't be late. We will call the meeting back to order. And item 4 on today's agenda is deputations, which there are none. Item 5, correspondence. I believe there are none, Joel. Perfect. Item 6, regular and returned reports. 6.1, Plan 2026-019, applications to amend the Kawartha Lakes official plan and Township of Somerville zoning bylaw 78-45, and for a draft plan of condominium common elements on vacant lands at Baseline Road. Ms. Watson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you said, my name is Amanda Bree Watson, and I am a planner for this file. I'm here today presenting the applications for an official plan amendment, a zoning bylaw amendment, and a common element condominium, which is a condominium consisting exclusively of shared interest in the what's going to essentially be a private road or a long driveway. And these are being requested to satisfy the conditions of consent. As shown on your screen, the subject lands are located along the west side of Baseline Road, and this staff report is being presented and received for recommendations today. Sorry, trying to get the slides to go forward. There we go. Thank you for your patience. The subject lands, as they stand now, are still all together, and they're approximately 10.74 hectares in size, or just under 25 acres, with a frontage on Baseline Road and the western boundary fronting onto Silver Lake. The property is currently accessed via Baseline Road and then on through Shadow Road number 20, which is an unassumed road. The lands are vacant. However, there's an abandoned structure. They'd previously been occupied, and there's overland drainage provided through swales and ditches across the site. Surrounding uses include agricultural and waterfront residential to the north and south, agricultural uses to the east, Silver Lake, which is the water body, and waterfront residential to the west. The official plan designation is currently waterfront and rural in Schedule A7, with unevaluated wetlands and significant woodlands, as would be shown on Schedule B7 in the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan. If you squint real good, you can see the subject lands are zoned rural general within the Township of Somerville zoning bylaw 7845. Again, the proposed development involves the creation of 3 residential waterfront lots accessed via the private road right-of-way that would be under condominiumized ownership. So the image in front of you was the used for the consent application. The 3 areas that are hatched are the proposed new residential lots, and the area bounded by green would be the retained. The proposed official plan amendment includes amending the Township of Somerville zoning, for the severed lots, it's identifying them as infilling, an amendment to section 33.311 that requires a maximum distance of 100 meters between the existing structures. Right now, there's the closest buildings are a little bit further than that, so we recognize that this would be an exception to that infilling policy. As far as the zoning bylaw amendment goes, for the severed lots, they would be rezoned to limited service residential, LSR, and environmental protection. The environmental protection is to establish the 30-meter no development buffer around the significant natural features, as well as setting the setback from the lake. The retained lands would be rezoned to a rural general exception. The exception legalizes the technical deficiencies in lot frontage, and the holding symbol would be included to mandate further archaeological assessments before any development were to occur on the remaining lands. The application was circulated and there have been no further comments since the information presentation. And to summarize, planning staff have determined that the applications are consistent with the PPS 2024. The official plan amendment formally recognizes the site as logical infill. The zoning bylaw amendments are appropriate, including the use of the EP to set the 30-meter setback. And again, the holding provision on the retain to address any future developments not happening until an archaeological assessment is done. The common element condominium does allow for that private access and ensures that the city does not assume the financial or operational burden of maintaining a new rural infrastructure. And that being said, staff supports the application because it represents good planning and is an appropriate use of the subject lands.
Thank
I
you.
thank you for your time. Yeah, go ahead.
Committee, any questions of Ms. Watson at this time? Mayor Elmsley?
I'm just curious on that map. You have a green line that runs into a red line, and I know it says retained and severed. Is that line a road? Is it, or it's just separating the lots, or is it a barrier? What exactly is it?
Back one.
Back.
There.
The
Through the
green
chair,
line.
Back one.
Go back one, please. There. The green line runs into the red line. It's halfway through the severed lot. I'm just curious, what is that, a road or just a line on a map, or?
This is, if I may go to the next slide through the chair, which is very similar. This shows the 3 lots that would be created, but each of those lots has 2 zones on the property. So even though this would be a newly created lot, this section would be the EP zone, and this section would be the LSR zone. And that happens for all 3 of the lots. The access, which isn't shown on this image, comes right through here. And if I may go back, sorry for making you dizzy. This is the condo road that they're proposing to access the 3 sites. This yellow line here also essentially depicts the zone line to protect these unevaluated wetlands and create that 30-meter setback from the water course.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none. Your recommendation to council. Member O'Reilly?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move that we receive the report and the recommendations, the application to amend the Kawartha Lakes official plan and the Township of Somerville zoning bylaw for a draft plan of condominium and vacant lands based Baseline Road, Moore, be received, and the official plan amendment respecting application D01-2025-001 substantial in the form attached as Appendix D to report plan 2026-019 be approved and adopted by council, and the zoning bylaw amendment respecting application D06-2025-002 substantially in the form attached as appendix be reported plan 2026-019 be approved and adopted by council.
Seconder for the motion, Councillor Warren. Any discussion?
Oh, is there more to go?
We're missing the backs today.
Yeah, missing the, where's the back here?
Right here, if you want my computer.
No, I got it right here. Won't be far here. The remainder over here. Oh, and that the draft plan of condominium common elements respecting application 004-25.001 substantially in the form attached to Appendix G to report plan 2026-019 be approved and adopted by council.
Oh, that's the wrong one.
No, that's right.
Who's on first?
All right, let's get this vote before something changes. We're still good. You're still good. Seconded, Councillor Warren. Any further discussion? Calling the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. All right, 6.2, Plan 2026-032, an application to amend the Township of Fenland zoning bylaw 12-95 at 620 Fennel Road, Kirkfield. Ray, Ms. Fraser, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aaliyah Fraser, and I am the planner for this file. Sorry, one second. Today, we are discussing an application for a zoning bylaw amendment at the subject lands, which are located at 620 Fennel Road in Fenland. The applicant is proposing to rezone the subject lands to prohibit residential dwellings as a condition of a provisional consent. The staff report is being presented and received for recommendation today. The relevant site context details are as follows. The property has a lot area of approximately 43.4 hectares with a frontage of 477 meters along Fennel Road, which is a municipal arterial road. The property is serviced by a private well and individual septic system. Existing uses on the subject lands include agricultural uses, which are on the portion of the land to be retained, and residential uses on the portion of the land to be severed as a result of the consent. Surrounding uses abutting or adjacent to the subject lands include the following. To the north, woodlands and agricultural uses, and to the south, east, and west, agricultural uses. The subject lands are designated prime agricultural and environmental protection in the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan and are zoned agricultural and environmental protection under the Township of Fenland zoning bylaw 12-95. This is a little bit hard to see, but if you have any questions, let me know. The applicant is proposing to rezone a portion of the subject lands from agricultural to agricultural exception with a holding symbol to prohibit the future establishment of residential uses on the lands to be retained through the consent. No development is proposed as part of this application. The zoning bylaw amendment is needed to facilitate the final approval of an application for consent to sever a surplus farm dwelling. 2 comments were received from the public in response to the public notice prior to the previous PAC report. They were addressed by the phone call by me. The proposal complies with the applicable policies of the PPS and the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan with respect to the severance of surplus farm dwellings and the requisite prohibition of residential uses on the agricultural parcel. The proposed agricultural exception holding zone reflects the requirements of these policy documents. Sorry about that. Give me one second. The previous staff report noted 2 issues with the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. One was raised by the city's building and septic division, who identified that the lot boundary proposed by the severance would not provide adequate clearance from the existing septic system. The other issue was identified by the Heritage Planning Economic Development Officer, who suggested that the application of a holding provision be applied to prevent future development on the remnant agricultural parcel without an archaeological assessment, because there are 2 archaeological sites of which the limits are still unknown near and potentially on the subject lands. Planning staff have now received a draft R plan with a lot line revised to allow adequate clearance from the septic system to the satisfaction of the building and septic department. Planning staff have also applied the recommended holding symbol to the proposed zoning, which would require the archaeological assessment prior to any development on the remnant agricultural parcel. With these matters addressed, planning staff recommend approval of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment as it complies with applicable provincial and municipal policy, provide adequate space for the existing uses on the severed lands, and applies the recommendation of the Economic Development Officer to the retained lands. Planning staff respectfully recommend approval of this report. Thank you.
Thank you for that review. Committee, any questions of Ms. Fraser at this time? Recommendations to council? Member O'Reilly? You're going to get winded.
Exactly. You can read it then, okay?
Tell them that you're moving as printed.
All right. Moved by Member O'Reilly that report plan 2026-032, an application to amend the Township of Fenland zoning bylaw 12-95 at 620 Fennel Road, Kirkfield, Ray, be received, that the zoning bylaw amendment respecting application D06-2026-008 substantially in the form attached as Appendix D to report plan 2026-032 be approved and adopted by council, that the zoning bylaw amendment respecting application D06-2026-008 substantially in the form attached as Appendix E to report plan 2026-032 be approved and adopted by council, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the documents required by the approval of this application. Seconder for the motion, Member Willick. Any discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. Thank you. That now brings us to item 6.3, Plan 2026-033, Bromont Lindsay 2 Corp. Subdivision Agreement, Gateway Phase 1. Director Barry, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My apologies. We're queuing up some slides. And off we go. And I'm acutely aware that I'm standing behind the committee members and staff and the rest of their afternoon. So we thank the proponent in this case, Bromont Lindsay 2 Corp. Mr. Severio is here today, and his consultant, Mike Bissett of Bousfields, who you have heard from on a previous applications public meeting earlier this afternoon. I've asked our deputy clerk to pull up an earlier slide. You'll be familiar with this one. Circled in blue is the quote-unquote Callahan lands that were subject to an earlier public meeting. And prior to that, to the extreme left of the slide would have been the Finney, quote-unquote, also MZO subdivision lands subject to an official plan amendment. What we're talking about now is the one right in the middle. It's the Gateway property, also subject to a ministerial zoning order, and it is bound by Lindsay Street South and Highway 7. And I will ask our deputy clerk to just scroll all the way to the end of the slideshow, and we will focus in on just these lands. All right, so I'm bringing a final draft of a subdivision agreement to you today for endorsement and ultimately to be adopted substantially in the form that is attached to your report today. As noted in the report, and I'll comment on a couple of pieces in my discussion here, we are just about there. A little bit of fine tuning is still needed. However, we are at the point in the process where we wanted to bring the subdivision agreement to you, and as part of our commitments to advancing the subdivision to final approval and registration, this is the last of the formal steps that staff are involved with to get us to that final approval and registration. So several years ago, in fact, 3 at this point, Council had draft approved the Gateway subdivision. July 2023 is when that happened. We can see just the location on the screen at the moment, and Joel, if we can just slide to the next one. Great. We are focusing on predominantly the lands outlined in the red box. However, the entirety of the Phase 1 registration does extend slightly south to the, southerly boundary of the subject lands. And it includes a number of blocks for infrastructure and also for future development. We will see subsequent phases come through this committee as we progress through phases 2, 3, etc. with subdivision agreements. Again, all draft approved, everything that you're seeing on the screen at the moment, draft approved. However, the first 67 residential dwelling units, and that's a combination of both single detached dwellings as well as townhouse dwellings, are included, and they're delineated within the confines of that red box. So we're satisfied that the subdivision agreement accurately captures all of the conditions of draft approval that were also adopted by council in July of 2023. The subdivision agreement not only maintains all of the details in the conditions of draft approval, but upholds the policies and the bylaws that the city has set up as pertain to the development of subdivision agreements. We're also up to date with the 2026 template for subdivision agreements that is methodically and carefully reviewed every year by our colleagues in development engineering. And so at this point, I'm just going to turn to a couple of specifics about the contents of the subdivision agreement that we are working through, the fine-tuning that I referred to earlier with Mr. Bissett. We already have information back on the confirmation of the new home sales office. This is not intended to be a separate location. This will take place in the existing sales office. There are currently 2 model homes that are proposed, and those are on lots 17 and 31 within the lots within the red box, as you can see. Last few pieces, very standard at this point in the process for this yet to be undertaken, or finalized rather, and that is the addressing for these lots. We also have, you've heard some reference to the master development agreement or framework agreement in the previous 2 public meetings. There is as well a master development agreement that pertains to this gateway subdivision as well. And so we're doing our sort of final reconciliation of that master development agreement with portions of the subdivision agreement. There are a few items just administratively that need clarification, reference to phase 1, for example. There is some template language that still refers to the completion of an arborist report and the equivalent payments that are needed for tree removal. This has all been completed, and so those provisions are going to be removed. At this point, too, I would thank Member Nguyen. Actually, there were a number of months ago where the member had just had a few questions about some of the provisions in the subdivision agreements, and these were around the default provisions, if you recall, Member Nguyen. And so we vetted those and reviewed them, and although there are, in all likelihood, safeguards, I'll say, in terms of protecting the municipality as it relates to insurance and maintaining in good standing the developer's commitments to maintaining their insurance in good standing, but that explicitly noting that as a separate identifiable provision in the subdivision agreement, also agreed to by the city solicitor. So we thank you for pointing that out. We don't think that this does any harm to the subdivision agreement, and just makes explicitly clear what the position of the city is. In fact, Mr. Chair, that summarizes the additional comments that I wanted to bring the committee up to speed on in terms of the final draft version of the subdivision agreement that's attached to the report. There are no further changes that I need to bring to the committee's attention at this point. We have found this to be, in our opinion, a good and productive and constructive effort on the part of both the developer and staff to get to this point, and we expect the subdivision agreement to not only proceed to council, but to proceed to registration in due course over the next month or so, a couple of months. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Committee, any questions for Director Barry at this time? Mayor Elmsley?
It's a stupid, picky question. Can you tell me how many beds the nursing home has?
Through the chair, to our mayor, if you bear with me just for a moment, I can get that for you. It's a substantial amount. It's
I can get it later.
Okay.
I'm
It
just
really would
curious.
just take a minute. It's not at the tip of my tongue. Normally, most things are.
Give it to me later. Don't worry.
Not a problem. We thank the mayor for bringing up the long-term care facility. It is a substantial new build for the city. We're very happy to see that as part of the subdivision, and the block for this long-term care facility is included within the phase 1 Thanks.
Councillor Warren?
Through you, so just on that, usually it's the ministry, so this has already gone through the ministry and beds have been allotted? Yeah, okay, that's great.
Any further questions? Member Barkwell?
Just a dumb question or observation. The phase one, it says it's blocks 37 to 41, and block 42 is not included in phase one, and that's the medium density. So it's just below, just to the south of the red. So it's, I think in the presentation it says that, you know, blocks, those blocks, and I just wondered if 42 should not be included, so we can work on it right away.
I'll just comment on that, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind. Thank you to the member for raising that. We have language that covers off this particular condition of draft approval. See, here's a figure that I have at the tip of my tongue, Mr. Mayor. Conditions 19 and 31, as it happens, are the conditions relative to the medium density or / affordable housing block. And in the subdivision agreement, it's under Schedule B, I believe, at the very bottom. Anyway, it refers to the block number that's to be conveyed as part of this subdivision agreement. So we do feel that it's captured. We'll obviously double check the numbers on the draft M plan to be registered and the language in the subdivision agreement. Okay.
If that's Schedule B on page 204, number 9, medium density residential block, it doesn't have anything in there. That's my dumb question. Document that I have.
Any further questions for Director Barry? Motion from Councillor Warren.
Yes, I'll move that report plan 2026-033 Bromont Lindsay 2 Corp. Gateway subdivision agreement phase 1 be received for information, that the subdivision agreement generally in accordance with draft version attached in Appendix D to report plan 2026-033 Bromont Lindsay 2 Corp. Gateway subdivision agreement phase 1 be endorsed by council, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the documents required by the approval of this request.
Seconder for the motion, Deputy Mayor Richardson. Any discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. Thank you. That brings us down to the final motion of the afternoon. Anyone? No takers? You want to listen to me all afternoon? Motion for adjournment, Mayor Elmsley, seconded by Member Barkwell. All in favor? That carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen.